Hi Homeworthy, I'm Patty B. Welcome to our home in Birmingham, Alabama.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi, I'm Patty B. Driscoll. We are here at our house in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm an artist. I have always made art and have an MFA in textiles. And since then, I've gotten more involved with painting, and I do still life paintings and sculpture. I've just recently started a hardware business called Agatha Studio, where I'm designing door knockers and cabinet pulls is my most recent thing. So I focused on textiles early on and had my MFA in weaving. I did large ikat installations in the Bay Area back in the 90s. So I was very involved with fiber art, but I was always kind of bridging this gap between design. I did restoration work on antique Persian carpets, and I worked in the Dongia showroom in San Francisco. So I've always kind of been involved with design, but I'm not a designer. I'm a full-time studio practicing artist. So on December the 8th, 2013, we were down in downtown, which is close by, at a Lessons and Carols Christmas program where our daughter was singing, and we had all of our phones cut off because it was being filmed for PBS. And lightning struck our house during that time. Our house was built in 1925, and it actually, we think it struck outside, and the fire started in this room where we're sitting. The sofa that would have been right here actually burned to the ground. It all worked out in the end, but it was a big hiccup in our life, and took us 2 years to rebuild. During the fire, our dog and 2 cats at the time were inside the house, but they survived and were rescued about 4 hours into the fire. And we lost everything on the attic level, and then pretty much everything else was saved but ruined by water and fire. So anyway, that's kind of changed the trajectory of a lot of things that we've done in our lives. And but we love our house and we love the rebuild. So, in wondering if we were going to rebuild or not, we never really questioned that. We immediately, standing outside in the rain, watching our house burn, we said, we're going to rebuild it exactly. We love this house so much from the get-go. It's really an incredibly unique house. We're the 4th people to live in it. We made very complicated decisions to go back exactly with the molding. The only thing we changed was a little bit of the footprint, where we really maintained all of the original parts of the house, but where there was some exterior areas within the design of the house, we grabbed that space and used it and made it better. So it's very original, and in some ways I think it got better. We put in windows that were more similar to the old house and like what it was in the 20s. So it's just been a great project. Welcome to the entrance hall. This is one of my favorite rooms. It's this kind of cool, icy lavender color called Fading Frost that's from Mystic Paints. This area ends up being a huge hub when we have parties. I often serve a punch bowl here. It's in the dining room right now, but it's fun to introduce a party with a cocktail, little special cocktail or something as everyone comes in. Love this banister that survived. Everything in this room survived our fire. So everything you see, archways, banister, we pulled the doors out like about 3 days after the fire. The doors are gorgeous, so happy we were able to save these. This is one of my favorite pieces in the house. It's a Regency console from England. I have a lot of auction finds that I ended up doing a lot of auctions but after the fire because we had to fill things up. So these dolphins have become a big inspiration for me and have led into some designs that I've done with my hardware, which I'll show you later. This is one of my paintings that I just had a show last year in Tuscaloosa, and I realized in 2018 I had a big show and I sold all of those paintings, which was great, but we didn't end up with any paintings in the house. So I kept all of the paintings from this past show just to show you. This is one of, I collect a lot of silver, and so does my mother, but this is one of these little pieces of silver that I did this arrangement in and then blew it up and photographed it and then painted it really large. And this is in a Stanford white frame. I buy a lot of frames at auction, and then I size my panels to the antique frames. And this is a composition about Evelyn Nesbit, which is supposed to be responding to the frame. That's a whole long decorative arts history. I've got some more artwork over here. This was my grandmother's bench, and when the fire happened, the firemen came through the front door, and I don't know what happened, but a lot got crunched here. And so this was, several legs were broken in this little chinoiserie piece, and my grandmother's cane stand used to be here, and it got demolished, and several of her canes. Some of these canes are hers, and I bought this at auction with a bunch more of other canes and some of my favorite umbrellas. This is one of my pieces from 2016. It's a cake stand of my great-grandmother's. I have it in the Butler pantry right now. I'll show it to you in a minute. But I got really into Dutch still life, and that's what was happening here. This is one of my favorite rooms in the house. It's my coat closet, which I love having a little splurge spot. So I did a little Hermes wallpaper for that. So this is my grandmother's bench that I covered with an antique toile that I love, that's in these same kind of purple lilac colors that work with this room. This is a piece by Helen Miranda Wilson that I bought from Cape Cod in Provincetown. And this is one of my gilded pieces that's part of my St. Agatha series. And there's a lot of that at the Birmingham Museum of Art. St. Agatha was the patron saint of breast cancer and assault victims. So very female inspired, exciting work that I like. This is my a new piece from Mexico, from San Miguel de Allende, and it's from Michoacan. It's a pineapple, and I just love the textures. I love it sitting in this niche and the way it's working. I hand carried it home. Love it. Lots of things have come out of this. My whole practice working in sculpture and hardware came from having to choose hardware for this house, everything down to hinges and every knob. So I have a binder just on hardware, and that has now led me into, and we'll talk about that later, but it's led me into a whole practice of sculpting and doing foundry work. But we really understand this house now and have made it function so well. When it was framed up, and to go back and see an open frame of a house and utilize spaces that you wouldn't have known that were there beforehand, that's been awesome, just to be able to expand storage. And I have a lot of closets that do different things for me, and it functions really well, and I wouldn't have had that beforehand. So here is our living room, and this is a huge room. For the first few years that we lived here, we just had a ping pong table, and it sat empty, but it was really fun. So gradually we've added different things and layered, and just enjoyed everything about this room. It's so big that I use this half as my studio. This is where all my sketches are, and I'm working on French matting techniques, and this is where my hardware prototypes have come just as of late, where I'm kind of playing with these and checking things out. This is one of my door knockers that's out in the garden. So anyway, this is my inventory right now. This is a piece that I love. It's a George III chinois cabinet that I keep all of my different still life things. It's kind of a curio. So it has all of these super cool little drawers and different things for collecting, and I just love it. I collect a lot of ribbons, and these are pieces, like this is that little cornucopia piece that I used for that still life painting. So I've painted all of these different objects, and there are pieces in here that I love, that I'm curious about, that I'm probably going to use as subject matter later on. This is a painting that I did actually when I think I was 15. Because of the fire that happened in this room, that entire wall over there was covered with art, and it was mostly melted or damaged enough that we lost the bulk of our art. So when I went back to redecorate this room, doing auction finds, this and that, my mother found this in the back of a closet at her house. So up it went. It was never finished, but it was during the Ethiopian famine of, I think, 1985 that I painted that. And then I have a whole collection of frames that are just waiting for still lifes that are above the mantelpiece. That's a painting of Judith killing Holofernes that I bought at auction, and I love early American, early 20th century aesthetic movement. These are just some of my favorite types of frames. I love gilding, and I have a real appreciation for water gilding, and I just can't stop buying these. This is also one of my favorite pieces. This also belonged to J. Hyde Crawford, who was the illustrator that did the Bonwit Teller violets, and I have a whole body of work that's based on Bonwit Teller about those violets, and that's a whole nother story. But this taboret is one of my favorite things that I own that was from his estate. As far as decorating a room this big, I've looked at Sister Parish, Nancy Lancaster, just all those classic rooms that were big, and how you create different seating arrangements. This area around the bay window has become its own area, and then there's 3 different clusters going on. The Knoll sofa in this bright magenta, this is a Nina Campbell magenta linen, and it anchors, pulling it out into the room really makes a huge anchor and divides up the space really well. So, I like flow. It seems the more I put in here, it kind of works. We always need more chairs when we have a party and pulling things up, and we've had a lot of people in this room, and a lot of gift opening and things like that. So I mess with it, I overdo it, and then I pull it back down and try to reboot. And this is all in flux right now. Nothing's ever really staying the same. I make a lot of crazy decisions and then kind of rework them. But I try not to be afraid to do it. It drives my husband crazy. I like to rearrange furniture a lot. So this is one of my kudzu paintings that I've framed in wicker. Most people don't know that kudzu blooms, and it's during the time, I always remember it because it's hurricane season. The bloom is this gorgeous magenta that hangs under the wild vine. And a lot of people don't even know what kudzu. Kudzu is a invasive vine that was planted by the US government in the 30s in I think Virginia and South, but it was to hold the soil in place. And now it is growing all over the South, and it's just a very invasive species. But I like using this strong will of kudzu as a metaphor for women. So that's what this piece was about. So this is our sunroom. It was originally an open loggia, and previous owners closed it in, and now we actually have these awesome windows that these open up, which I love, and then it can become a screen porch. So when we bought the house, there were some old 1980s windows that were great, they worked, but this was pretty nice to be able to put in these new windows that feel older. Also, our pool was designed, I think, in the early 80s, late 70s, and it was a whole lot of concrete. So we took half of the pool and made it smaller and put a spa in it, and then planted boxwoods around it and took away all the concrete just so it feels like a garden area. And it just is kind of softened this whole space. I love this room. It feels like you're outside even when you're inside. And we put this monster TV over here. So yes, we watch a lot of TV. This is where I do my binging. Let's head on into the dining room. So I am preparing for a close family friend's baby shower, which we're excited about. And for this party, we're using the punch bowl up here. This is a punch bowl that my mother actually bought when she was 22 in Windsor, England, for my grandmother. So it's really special, and I love having a punch. It kind of sets the tone for a party. I had my niece's bridal shower a year and a half ago, and a tornado went overhead. No one was worried about the hurricane. Just enough fun punch makes everything at ease. So these are all auction and estate sale finds that I've collected over the years. This piece had been gilded and was really, really bright, and it survived our fire and got smoked, so it gained about 200 years in patina, so it's just right now. This room, the dining room was much larger and kind of off-centered, and what we did, we closed it in, made it a little bit smaller, and curved the walls. And as I was saying earlier, this is really my favorite room now. We did this Gracie wallpaper, and it's just my favorite. Just feels like we're in a nest and that bees and birds are flying all over. I made my niece's wedding cake last year that was inspired by this wallpaper, kind of chinoiserie Gracie style. Let's see, what else? This is my, these are mixes of antiques from my husband's family, so it's a mix of Southern and New England. Dave is from, his family was Boston and Rhode Island. This was his grandmother's, where they used to serve oyster stew out of in Boston. And this was his mother's coffee and tea set, which I just love. It's an old Tiffany piece, and it was a wedding gift from her grandmother in 1959. So anyway, we're gonna have a fun party here. I was pulling out all these linens. My mother collects a lot of linens, and several of these are hers. This table is huge. I bought it again at auction. I think it's 11 feet, so it's hard to find a tablecloth that's gonna work with this, but we've been playing with a lot of the different vintage cloths, and it's one thing I really love is just looking back, the textile work that is done with vintage and antique cloths. This is called a handkerchief cloth, and it belonged to my great aunt Babe, and it's made of multiple handkerchiefs sewn together. She was the registrar at the University of Montevallo, and all of her students made this for her. I just think it's so lovely. Her last name was Hendricks. I think it's exciting that there's an appreciation for linens and antiques. I'm excited about Grand Millennial and people appreciating things. I hope my children start appreciating things like this. This is my mother's, that with her monogram. And I have a whole linen closet upstairs just full of different things. So we share and trade out for different parties. So these pulls were my first foray into sculpting for metal. I had taught myself how to sculpt really by making, it was during graduate school, I started making cakes and taking them to friends' houses. So I started making sugar flowers and taught myself how to sculpt there. So I really started with sugar, and then we got to the place with the rebuild of this house, and I had pretty much run out of money, and I wanted something like this to feed off of the chinois idea, and I was really inspired by that Regency console. So I wanted dolphins, and I couldn't afford the ones that I liked, and so I decided to learn how to make them. So the artist at Sloss Furnace helped walk me through the process, and I sculpted these in clay first, and then had these cast at Sloss. And since then, that has blown up into this whole adventure with hardware, and so it all started with these dolphins. So the style of the house is, I think, Tudor Revival, which there's quite a bit of that in Birmingham. We have a lot of great Gothic entryways, and what you'll see in the house is all original, and then we took the cues from some of those arches and elaborated on that. So a lot of it, the house had dark floors throughout, which I'm kind of a lighter person. We ended up with this house. I waited for 2 years to buy this house because I was in cahoots with the previous owner, who was a family friend. And so when it came up, it felt so good. Just the energy of this house is so good, and the flow. But there were dark areas. So after the fire, we did things like we made a marble entryway that's gray and white, and we put pine in the kitchen just to lighten the feel of the house. So decorating the home, I had Mary Evelyn McKee as a designer in Birmingham who helped me right when the fire happened, and thank goodness she was there because she helped me make some great decisions and really laid out the bones, and we worked with some really good fabric here. And since then I've been layering. I think I'm definitely a maximalist at heart. I end up kind of working in every bit of this house. I make piles. Right now we're pretty tidy, but I let things unravel. Over here is kind of like a studio. This room is a 20 by 30 foot room, so I ended up making messes everywhere and then pulling it back. But I'm also a lover of textiles, so there's textiles throughout this house. I love to travel, so it's layered upon layered, and gets junky, but I kind of pull it back together again at different times. Well, we can come through from the dining room is the kitchen area, which I love. This holds a ton of people, and it ends up, as always, the party ends up in the kitchen. So it's pretty big. We did light pine wood in here, and it just keeps this really airy and kind of natural. This island was actually made from heart of pine floor joists that we pulled out of the house. So the cabinets, the counters in the butler pantry and here are this heart of pine, which I just love. Keeps it very cozy and warm, and I love an all-white kitchen, but this is actually multiple shades of gray. All the paint in the house is either Faro and Ball or Donald Kaufman, besides that fading frost. There's some Ben Moore upstairs. I love picking out colors. It's just one of my favorite things. So there's about 4 different colors going on in here that just kind of balance really well. And I'm preparing cheese straws. That's what I'm going to do this afternoon for the baby shower that's coming up. So this is this very special Swedish, all the new stuff doesn't work. This is a vintage Swedish cookie press that will pump out these old-fashioned cheese straws, which is kind of a Southern prerequisite. Just took a long time to deep dive to figure this all out. So I mentioned Dave cooking earlier. We love to keep this little faux area under this island where we keep our heaviest Dutch ovens, because he will do just a great all-day stew on Saturdays, and he's really the cook. So that's where this all happens. We put in this Leconche stove, which we love, and hard to choose a color that you're gonna live with forever, but this one's working, especially with these Faro and Ball colors that we chose. It just kind of blends right in. So we did no shelves, open shelving, and just kept a really kind of fresh and airy kitchen. Okay, so I wanted to show y'all these because I've talked about my napkin rings in silver that I love so much. I've started block printing this all. I'm making hardware based on some buttons that I found up in our little farmhouse in Maine. That's a whole nother project. But I had this block carved in Jaipur, and that's one button that I've based it on that was actually this big. But so I'm starting this whole different design and using our house in Maine for kind of a lab that I'm going to do fabrics and wallpaper for. So my nephew is getting married next week, and I've block printed napkins for him to go with. I'm so excited about this. And my soon-to-be his fiance, these gorgeous sterling napkin rings with their initials that were already on it. These are from England, and I think they're just going to be so pretty. She likes kind of natural colors, and I just think it's going to be awesome. Kind of old and new at the same time. Okay, I was going to show you a quick little demo of how I do these flower arrangements for this baby shower. So I'm going to use all these antique baby cups. I also use these on Christmas trees, and it's just fun. So to do a base, like this is a nice little piece of hydrangea that's really fluffy and ends up being a base. This is so easy. And then this little pretty thistle and some delphinium. kind of make it wispy. You know, it just doesn't need much. I mean, that looks great as is. I also like using herbs. So I've cut mint this morning. And just get a little touch of green. That just kind of does the trick. Easy, easy peasy. A ton of these all over the table are great. Little nosegays. So we have this big farm table that I love. If it's just the two of us, we work on the end of this, but I've set this for family that's coming over. We love Simon Pierce, and I love using these are 19th century French absinthe glasses that are hand blown. So it works so well with the Simon Pierce, as old and new, but all feels kind of modern and fresh. I love these napkin rings, sterling napkin rings that have numbers on them, which I'm hoping, I wish I'd had time and I would have, my gift to my nephew has his initial on it, but I'm hoping they'll engrave numbers on the back, because if you're having, you know, family or you're at a vacation spot, then you can reuse the napkins depending if they're not overly, you know, soiled, but everyone, you know, you reuse the same napkin if you know your number. Our children always fought for like their certain number that they had on their napkin ring. So I love collecting these. This this is a Nantucket basket that belonged to my mother-in-law that we had up in our bedroom, and when the fire happened, the roof collapsed and completely squished this, which is so sad, but now it's almost become an art piece. It has this beautiful piece of scrimshaw that has the Ferris wheel from, merry-go-round from Watch Hill, and I just love it. So anyway, it lives here, and it's just one of my favorite things. This is one of my paintings that took me a long time, about 6 years to finish it, but it's one of my favorites. These are fava beans that I hand carried from New York home, and the David Austin roses that we grow outside. So I knew I was an artist at an early age, and I think when someone tells you you're good at something, that often turns into your passion. And so I could draw early on, and so I was always taking art classes. I'm not an athlete, I'm not an academic. It was always easy for me to make art. So I've worked in a lot of different mediums, fiber, painting, drawing, sketching. I've taken a twirl with cake decorating, and it always keeps me busy. So right now I have a studio downtown where I paint, and that's my major focus, but then I also have this side business with Agatha Studio. This is the kitchen area, and this is the butler pantry that we tweaked. It used to be a really skinny hall kind of butler pantry, and we created actually a full-on room in here, which is so awesome because I do a lot of flowers here. It stays cool. We have this German silver sink that I can just dump all the flowers in and then prep stuff in here. And then after that's done, for this party that's coming up, flowers will be on the table, and I will ice all the Prosecco and lemonade and whatever in here. This silver sink keeps things cold for like 2 days. And I love these. We did not have this in the house beforehand, but it's pretty special, and there are several historic homes in Birmingham that do have it, that are close to this neighborhood. And what's so amazing about it is that you can wash silver, and you can wash china and crystal, and because of the softness of the silver, it doesn't chip things. So this is where cleanup happens. So it ends up being a flower arranging, ice cooler, and then the cleanup spot. And it also ends up being a party central. Interestingly enough, it's kind of big, and we put the freezer in here, and so we divided up the fridge and the freezer, which I think was a really good decision, because you're really never going to the fridge and the freezer at the same time. So we bring everything in here, load up the freezer, and it ended up making both of these units look like cabinetry. And this is where I keep all of our different china and silver and different serving pieces down here. This is the piece that's in that painting, which I think is just such a cool silver piece. So I'm probably gonna do little petitfours on this. So this was in that painting in the entrance hall. So this is the bulk of my china, this heron pattern. I have a lot of china, but this is the one that stays out the most. And These are different pieces. This is a Jeanne pattern. Those are my mother-in-law's little gilded pieces, and I have another Queen Victoria up here. I love this little sweet French pattern. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the silver closet, which is really kind of my favorite room. This is all covered in Pacific cloth, which is the anti-tarnish cloth, and it matched. I love this color because it was kind of the perfect mint that matched the Gracie. So for the most part, it keeps this pretty fresh. I polish once a year because I am the butler from the Butler Pantry. But these are a lot of different pieces, some from Dave's family and some from mine, and like these are my grandmother's goblets with her initial and then our initials, my initials on the other side, which is really fun. And I use a lot of these for my still life paintings. So when people arrive here, I think they love it. The entryway is beautiful, and it's what was designed in the 20s. It's dual levels and these beautiful doors and arched Gothic openings. But mostly, the greatest thing about this house is that it's an awesome entertaining house and it feels warm. So the lady that I bought the house from, she let me sneak in and see it ahead of time, and I asked her where she put her Christmas tree, and it was obvious. It's in this beautiful bay window. We host a lot of parties, a lot of family. I'm a member of a big family in town, and so we're having showers. I'm prepping for a baby shower that I'll show you in a little bit. But that's what the house flows and feels really good for entertaining. This is our den. I love all these pocket doors. This is where we live and spend most of our time. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's by Jimmy Lee Sudduth, who was an artist in Alabama, just outside of Tuscaloosa. He's famous for using Alabama mud, red clay, and this was called Whoa, which I love. Bought that when my kids were really little, and we have pictures of them standing next to it, just teeny tiny. Auction finds that are in this house. This is from Mario Boita's auction. There's a Perdonium that my husband bought. It's probably one of the stranger things in that auction. This would belong to J. Hyde Crawford from his estate. Also in here are lots of textiles that I love. We took our kids to Peru, and as I said before, I was a weaver, so at one point I owned 3 looms and was weaving all the time during my graduate work. But these are from a town outside of Cusco called Chinchero, and they're just some of the greatest textiles. So I just throw things over. I did make pillows out of some of them, and these are just kind of loose. This one was done on a backstrap loom, and it's just sitting here, just kind of flopped on, but brings a pop of color, and I love it in here. So as far as mixing patterns and with textiles, I do think there's layering, and you layer and layer, and then at times it can just seem kind of crazy, but you just keep going, and then you pull back and edit it again. These lampshades are new, and I would have thought they were too much at the time with this, but it's all working. Sometimes I think more altogether works better, as long as there's some little thread of unity. So there's a lot of this oxblood that's going on in the weavings and the magenta, and it all seems to be in harmony. So this is one of the first still life paintings that I did. My mother had given me this piece of heron cornucopia for my 30th birthday. So it was in my early 30s when I started doing still life, and so love this, keeping this one close to the family. And then these are other pieces that I've collected from New England. I'm always trying to learn things and figuring things out. We are project people, so we're always trying to dive in and learn about things. I just gave my husband a book on thatching roofs. We thought we might want to try that at some point. And this is a really pretty entrance to the patio. So we're not spending much time outside because it's still really hot in Birmingham, but this is one of our favorite spots, and it's our pool that we painted in this dark blue and set it into stone, so it really just feels almost like a garden piece and doesn't scream pool. It's really small, and we mostly use it for the little spa hot tub here, which can fit about 10 people and has bubbles here, which is nice. So we love this little patio area. It was designed to kind of feel like a rug. So we have this brick lining and then the flagstone around it. We just got this fountain going. But the best thing was these were little windows in the living room, little bitty windows that didn't open. So we were able to tweak that and create French doors here. So this is always a really nice flow through for parties. So as far as the coziness and hominess of a house, I think we do not have wood burning fireplaces anymore. We have these little coal electric fires that are cozy, and I think just having a lot of people in the house makes it lively. And also my husband is a great cook, and he loves to do a great like beef bourguignon or gumbo, something all day Saturday, and making the house smell good. So when the kids are home, we're always doing that. There's football on the TV and just cozy, homey feeling with smells and everything sensory. Well, I love so many things about this home. I think the architecture was beautiful to start with. The molding is incredible. And then the tweaks that we've done are just all the more special. And our dining room is really incredible. We had the opportunity to rework it, so we made it smaller and curved the wall, so it kind of has this nest-like feeling, and we used a Gracie wallpaper. So I think that's my favorite part about the home, but also this home looks big, but it's almost like a really big cottage. You can hear everybody, you know, everything's kind of contained and it has a flow. There's also a lot of great access points where light crosses through the house, and that's pretty fabulous. A lot of it were smaller windows from the 20s originally, so we had the opportunity to turn those into French doors and just create a lot of flow through with light and pattern of people when they're here. And now I'm going to take you into our powder room, which is another one of my favorite small spots. This is one of our favorite things, these little pea Garin birds that were the faucet. My kids joke that when I die, they both want these, but I think the pea Garin really inspired me too to really get excited about hardware. I had just sold a painting right before the fire, and I was like, you know what? I'm buying the pea Garin birds with that money. So I love these. They were a splurge, but they've kind of started my passion for hardware. Love this room. The flooring is this really cool tile. I had originally seen this pattern at the Papacy in Avignon, and I've always loved it. It's a traditional pattern, but it's so modern. And then we covered this was a Mary Evelyn idea. We covered this entire room with this olive suede, and it's just like a jewel box, and it just always feels so good. So we're gonna go upstairs, and I was gonna show you this screen. It was in my parents' bathroom, and I gessoed it and created this Bonwit Teller screen that was part of my series on the violets. But now we're gonna go up to the bedroom. So this is our bedroom, which I love. This is Pale Powder by Farrow & Ball. It was the same color before the fire, and it's been the same color after the fire. It's my favorite color. It's so soothing, and just always makes me feel restful. So this is one of my favorite pieces in the house that we found it was through the Bunny Mellon auction, and this actually was it was a coffee table in her Virginia estate, and it was listed kind of strangely. I think it said 20th century coffee table, but I don't think it mentioned the textile that was actually set into the piece. And I believe that the textile was her mother's piece, and it's just extraordinary work that's going on here. It cost me as much to restore the textile as it did buying the piece, and that's probably why I got it, why it sold cheaply. But I love it, and it fits this room perfectly. So I love this chandelier. This was from an estate sale, but I actually know the family that it came from, and one cousin is a very close friend of mine and remembers it in the dining room of that family. So I love that it's continuing on and living in another old house, and I know its provenance is kind of cool. So this is this pretty little alabaster statue that I found in an estate sale. It was literally in a cardboard box in the garage of that sale, but it's one of my favorite things in the house. And this is a Joseph Albers print. I had another study in yellow that was down in our living room that was destroyed with the fire. That was actually a college graduation gift that my parents gave me. But so I was dead set on finding another Albers, and this one I think works great here. We love this bed. It's all this different patterns of Virginie, and our linens are from Leontine. My friend Jane Scott Hodges in New Orleans was here right before I ordered these and helped me kind of brainstorm on what I was doing for this room. And then I'll take you to the closet. So this is a fire perk that I never expected. We had teeny tiny closets and a teeny tiny bathroom that's now the laundry room. My husband never had a shower for 7 years. He used a handheld shower. So he got an upgrade, and I'll show you that in here. So this is the little dressing room, and this is my closet, which I love. I've kept this very plain and simple with a little bow wood. Colfax and Fowler. So I had these hat boxes made. It's a place up in New Hampshire called Sarah's Hat Boxes that I sent the fabric, the bow wood up to them, and they made these little hat boxes for me, which I love, and I just store different, letters and things like that in here. But working with a lot of mirror helped make the space feel all the better, and just expanded on the feeling, and I love it. It's soothing, and I can pack in here, and it's easy. I also have I haven't shown anyone this really, but I have a packing suitcase closet. So this was really a handy thing after the fire. Just had this little extra space. So I have all my suitcases and travel gear ready to go when I want to go quickly. So I love to travel and love being organized. So these are scarves that I've just made. I had these were based again on the little button design that I found in our barn in Maine. Like that is one button, but I did a repeat pattern, and then I've had these made in Italy that I'm going to be selling on my website, which I love, and they're all these different colors. This is a bag that a friend of mine, Gina Podesta, hand makes. She's in Brooklyn, but also on Deer Isle in Maine. So she hand sews all this gorgeous leather and then does this, I don't know what this knotting is. It's not a weave, but it's some kind of cool knotting. But I just love this. It's my favorite new thing. This is a statue of St. Agatha that I found in Santa Fe. It's from Lithuania, but it's another favorite that I just love having her up here. Kind of keeps things calm. So this is our bathroom, which we really expanded because this used to be an exterior space. And so what we did was just grab this space and utilize the footprint. But now I take baths every night, and it's just kind of my haven over here. So the word home, I think, it is where you are at the moment. And we've lived in a lot of homes. We lived in 2 rental houses and a hotel while we were redoing this house. And I'm pretty attached to both of those houses. They were home at the moment. But this is where we've lived the longest, and our memories are mostly here. So that's the essence of it, the memories made with family.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.